Alright, here's about where we left off, and then I do have a quick recap because I don't remember how well I explained things to begin with.
Started taking the boards out from underneath the windows because it seemed like all the windows in the house had some pretty big leaks underneath, and I wanted to know how bad it was. When I took those boards off, the top layer of plaster just fell off the wall, and same with the ceiling. Well, the ceiling didn't start falling off until I put the ceiling tiles off. And then the carpet that was in here was absolutely disgusting. It had to go. Once I got the boards off, once I got the ceiling off, plaster's falling all over the place. Uncovered this here hole in the wall, kind of covered by the ladder. I'm guessing they redid the plumbing in the bathroom at some point and then just never patched this. Instead, they just like covered it with the boards. So there's like 18 different layers of wallpaper and then paint and then more wallpaper and then of course the top plaster that's just coming off. Also this second like electrical box that was just covered with wallpaper, so that was a fun find. Now because those boards were nailed, there is like 800 little baby holes in the plaster, and then it also looks like at some point this wall was like patched over, like something happened. Again, maybe the bathroom was worked on, so I have that to deal with. And then the window situation. So there's like these two windows here, two windows here. Then there's these side windows that don't have hinges. These windows, they don't, like I had to pry this one open with like 18 different tools that probably should never be used on a window. They are glued, shutter than shut. This is me trying to chip away at the paint to get a window open because it's hot as hell in here. And they don't even like shut all the way. They're not shut all the way, they don't open, like, so, ooh. I did not have any kind of like order of operations going into this, but I decided the next step was going to be to get these windows open and get some airflow. I found this bucket of gel paint stripper that's not supposed to have a crazy chemical scent, and it's supposed to be not super duper toxic, which is good because obviously I have no way to ventilate this room. The bucket lied. It was a dirty, dirty liar because it said that it was a gel and it wouldn't dry. It claimed that I didn't need to wrap it up, nothing. It was going to stay wet until I stripped it off. That was not true. So I spent quite a bit of time on this first round painting this stuff on and scraping it off, only to remove like a singular layer of paint. Or I could be wrong, maybe that's just how paint stripper works, but it was really, really frustrating. As mentioned, very little paint came off with the first round of paint stripper, so here is some clips of very unsatisfying paint peeling. Part of me decided that that was good enough and that I should try to pry the windows open. So I had, at this point, already got 3 of the windows open. This was the last one. I'm not sure how much of this you want to watch me struggle through. In reality, this only took 6 minutes, but it felt like it took about, I don't know, an hour and 6 minutes to get this window open. Should I have just taken the screen off and tried to push it from the other side? Probably. There's going to be a lot of probablys in this little series here, but instead of pushing the window from the other side, as a logical person would do, I sat and scraped at each of the little seams until I could get enough leverage, stick the little baby paint scraper in between, and pry the window open. Thanks to technology, this all actually happened 7 months ago. And like 3 months into the process at that. I have been working on this room for almost a year. I think a piece of me making these videos is to try to actually encourage myself to just sit down and do it, because I get frustrated and then I get bored and I take breaks, really, really long breaks from being productive. So when this was all going down, it was really, really hot out, like 100 degrees hot, and it felt critical to get some airflow into the house. Since then, winter happened, and since I am so great at timing, I went through majority of this winter without windows on the house. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. After I got sick of playing with windows for months on end, I decided to start patching the big old hole in the wall. So probably was a better way number 2. I get that I should have just stripped off the plaster and replaced it with drywall, but I didn't. I wanted to learn how to be a plasterer. So I went to the store and I picked up these lath boards, cut them to size, and started nailing them in to patch the big old hole.
Okay, like major disclaimer, because I don't think I've said this yet. I don't know what I'm doing. Only a little bit, all right? So please, nobody take this as a tutorial. This is not me providing any kind of instruction on how things can or should be done. This is a very good example of that disclaimer. When I Googled how to repair the lathe, everything said to use these very specific nails that I couldn't find. So I just went downstairs and pulled out a nail gun. I have no idea if that's an acceptable substitution, but that's what I did. I think you get the point. This video is going to be so boring. I'm so sorry. After a very long delay, I was finally able to start plastering the wall. The delay was mostly due to the fact that this product seemingly only exists online. I had to pay like $50 in shipping for this bag of plaster. So reason number, I don't know, 212, why I should have just drywalled instead of plaid. We're not going to keep coming back to that. So plaster bucket in hand, and my feet effectively freezing because at this point we're getting into winter and I don't have windows. Also, we're getting into me doing a lot of this stuff in the dark with the lights on. That didn't make sense. It's nighttime outside in a lot of these videos because as we got further and further into winter, the sun, was setting at like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. So I'm going to go ahead and apologize now. I'm fairly certain that the video quality is downhill from here. The the lighting is terrible. I'm using an iPhone and iMovie to do this. So apologies out the way, here we are. Now, is my plaster job really, really rough? Absolutely. But I think it could have gone a whole lot worse for me having never done this before. I am kind of crossing my fingers that the brown coat and the top coat are going to hide a lot of the imperfections. And then back over to stripping paint off the windows because I can't seem to finish one task at a time. So this might have been like the 5th, 6th, 7th layer of paint stripper. I had to buy a second bucket. But little by little, I was able to see the wood. And it wasn't until like the very end of this process that I was talking to a coworker and he suggested I use a heat gun. My God, I wish I knew that sooner. The hardest part to get the paint off of was like the inside of the window frame where all the little details are, the tiny little lines, because I couldn't get it with the paint scraper without just gouging the wood. The heat gun just like bubbled up the paint and lifted it off the wood better than the paint stripper did. So I wish I had done that to begin with. I didn't know, so I spent, weeks doing this method of just like painting the goop on from the bucket, saran wrapping it, and then scraping it off. Also worth noting probably at this stage, I'm not trying to get the wood bare to where I can stain it and finish it. I'm gonna be painting it again. There was just too much gouging, a lot of damage, and then it looked like some parts had been replaced over time. So all the wood didn't quite match. I had to do some patching myself. So the primary reason for stripping the paint was for function. There was about a 1/4 inch of paint on these windows. There was no way they would open and shut without removing a lot of those layers. And then as I started removing layers, you could see like chips in the paint. So if I were to just paint over it again, it would look bad. So I was just trying to get it to a point where it was smooth enough that if I put a coat of paint on, it would look good. Don't mind me, I look really stupid trying to get this saran wrap on the wall. I think the two longest processes in this whole project so far have been removing paint and removing defective plaster. Now, I did end up buying one of those like knife in handle paint scrapers, and that sped things up quite a bit. So this is actually the tool that was kind of gouging the inside part of the window if I wasn't careful, so that's why I ended up using a heat gun. For some reason, I don't think I actually took any video using the heat gun. Did a lot of Googling on that thing and found out like the temperature that lead paint becomes vaporized in the heat, I guess. So we kept it at the setting below that limit. And yes, I realize I'm an idiot and I should have been wearing a mask. Like, there is most definitely lead paint in this house. I get it. Okay, you don't need to come at me. I'm an idiot. But I did at least have an air filter running. I had a vacuum running. And I was doing my best to not inhale, little itty bits. So the paint shavings were quite large. Once I moved on to a sander, I promise you I wore a mask. I'm not sure how many of you made it this far. Like I said, this is probably really, really boring. I'm sitting here scraping paint. I think this is like barely a step above watching paint dry. I was fairly surprised at how many people watched like the part 1 of this video, but I love all the comments of like ideas on how to do this better. I don't think I'll be able to apply a lot of that to this room because, like I said, I've been already working on this for 9 months so far. But it's definitely going to help me when I move on to other areas, other rooms in the house to hopefully get this done a little bit quicker. Okay, so this is where we're at. Windows, mostly stripped down. Plaster, mostly patched up. Still need to strip that paint. Floors, absolute disaster. Plaster, base coat, and then other windows, relatively paint free. I might have burned the screen with a heat gun. Good thing I needed to replace that anyway.